I had 3 minutes to stop a murder, and only one way to do it: kiss the man I came here to save. The Grand Hyatt ballroom glittered like a jewel box, all crystal chandeliers and imported roses, but I could smell the rot underneath. 300 guests, 50 security guards, a dozen hidden assassins, and one poison bottle of Chateau Margaux waiting on the service table, marked with a red ribbon only I knew to look for. Kang Junhyuk stood at the altar in a Tom Ford tuxedo that probably cost more than my life was worth. The alpha of Seoul's underworld. The man they called untouchable. Cold. Controlled. Dangerous in ways that made even other alphas step back. And he had no idea he was about to die. The USB drive burned against my ribs, hidden in the inner pocket of my borrowed suit. Evidence. Recordings. Bank transfers. Proof that his bride's family had orchestrated everything. The courtship, the proposal, the peace treaty that ended 3 years of bloodshed. All of it theater leading to this moment. The first toast. The poisoned wine. A very public, very fatal heart attack. I'd spent 10 years as a fixer in Seoul's underworld. 10 years being invisible, disposable. Useful only as long as I stayed quiet and delivered results. I'd brokered deals between monsters. I'd cleaned up messes that would make civilians vomit. I'd survived by being the person no one remembered seeing. "Do you take this woman?" The officiant's voice carried across the silent crowd. This was supposed to be my last job. I'd already decided. One final act, then disappear. Maybe Thailand. Maybe just the Han River. I hadn't decided which exit I preferred. But then I'd uncovered the plot. A dying informant, bleeding out in a Gangnam alley, had whispered the truth with his last breath. The wedding. The wine. They're going to kill him. I should have walked away. I'd seen important men die before. It wasn't my problem. It was never my problem. Except Junhyuk's eyes had found mine across the reception earlier, just for a second. Sharp. Assessing. Seeing me when no one ever saw me. And something in my chest had twisted painfully. "I do," Leuna said, her smile perfect and poisonous. The ceremony ended. Applause rippled through the crowd. Camera flashes exploded. The bride and groom walked down the aisle, and I watched Junhyuk's shoulders carry the weight of an empire he'd built from blood and bullets. He looked like a king preparing for execution, not marriage. Because he was. My Omega instincts screamed at me, "Danger, Alpha, run," but I'd stopped listening to survival instincts years ago. They'd never kept me alive. Only made me afraid. The reception began. Waiters circulated with champagne. The poisoned wine was being wheeled toward the head table on a silver cart. 2 minutes now. Maybe less. I could leave. Slip out the service entrance. Let Seoul's underworld sort itself out the way it always did. Violently. Messily. Without me. But I'd already made my choice the moment I looked into those cold, intelligent eyes and thought, he doesn't deserve to die like this. Betrayed. Blindsided. Alone. This was my last job. My last choice. My last chance to do something that mattered. So I walked through the crowd of Korea's most dangerous men, and I did the unthinkable. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from. The Grand Hyatt Seoul rose above the Han River like a monument to power. I'd slipped past the first security checkpoint with forged press credentials, a borrowed Armani suit, and the kind of confidence that came from having nothing left to lose. The wedding of the decade, they were calling it. Korea's most eligible alpha bachelor finally settling down. A love story for the ages. They had no idea they were attending a funeral. The ballroom could have housed a small village. Crystal chandeliers the size of cars hung from vaulted ceilings. Imported Italian marble floors reflected the light like still water. White roses, thousands of them, perfumed the air with a sweetness that couldn't quite mask the underlying scent of expensive cologne, champagne, and carefully concealed weapons. I recognized faces from the business pages and the crime blotters. Chaebol heirs in their designer suits, looking bored and entitled. Politicians whose campaigns had been funded with blood money, smiling for cameras. Crime bosses from Busan, Incheon, Daegu. All the major syndicates represented, maintaining the fragile peace that this wedding was supposed to cement. Security was everywhere. Earpieces. Concealed holsters. Eyes that tracked every movement. But I'd learned long ago how to be invisible. How to move through spaces like I belonged there. How to be forgotten the moment someone looked away. The ceremony was already underway when I found my position near a marble column, 3rd row from the back. Perfect sight line. Close enough to move fast. Far enough to avoid immediate scrutiny. And there he was. Kang Junhyuk stood at the altar like a king at his own execution. The Tom Ford tuxedo fit him perfectly, tailored to emphasize his alpha build, broad shoulders, narrow waist, the kind of presence that made people instinctively submit or flee. His face could have been carved from stone. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that missed nothing, black hair swept back, revealing a face too severe to be called handsome, but impossible to look away from. Beautiful ceremony, the woman beside me whispered to her companion. Beautiful lie, I thought. The bride approached on her father's arm. Lee Yuna, daughter of Lee Sung-min, head of the Lee Syndicate. She wore Vera Wang and diamonds, her smile serene and calculated. This marriage was supposed to end 3 years of territorial warfare that had left bodies floating in the Han River and bullets in boardroom walls. A peace treaty written in vows instead of blood. Junhyuk's alpha scent carried even from this distance, cedar and smoke, dominance and control. But underneath it, something else. Tension. His instincts were warning him. He just didn't know what they were warning him about. Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? The officiant's voice echoed through the ballroom. I touched the USB drive through my jacket, feeling its sharp edges. The evidence had cost me everything to obtain. 3 nights ago, I'd found Park Min-soo bleeding out in a Gangnam alley. We'd worked together before. Information brokers operating in the shadows of Seoul's underworld. He'd grabbed my wrist with a bloody hand, pulled me close. Wedding, he'd gasped. Kang's wedding. The wine first toast poison. Who? I'd demanded. Lee. Family. Make it look. Heart attack. Young alpha. Stress. No one questions. His hand had gone slack. I'd left him there and run. I should have walked away. Should have taken the information to the highest bidder, collected my payment, disappeared into whatever hole I'd crawled out of. I'd seen important men die before. Watched empires crumble. It wasn't my problem. It was never my problem. But I'd made the mistake of researching Kang Junhyuk. Of reading about how he'd built his syndicate with intelligence instead of just brutality. How he protected the people in his territory. How he'd refused to traffic in the things that destroyed lives, drugs, people, desperation. In Seoul's underworld, that made him almost noble. Almost good. I do, Junhyuk said, his voice carrying no emotion. The ceremony continued. Traditional vows mixed with modern sensibilities. The press took photos. Politicians applauded on cue. And Lee Yuna smiled like she'd already won. Then Junhyuk's eyes swept the crowd, that alpha instinct seeking the source of his unease. His gaze passed over me once. Returned. Locked. For 1 second. Maybe less. We looked at each other across 300 people and 30 meters of marble floor. His eyes narrowed slightly, trying to place me. Trying to understand why an Omega he'd never met was staring at him like I was memorizing his face. Because I was. Because in a few minutes, he'd either be dead or I would be. I'm already dead anyway, I thought. Might as well die for something. The bride's father caught my eye from across the room. Lee Sung-min. His expression was pleasant, grandfatherly. But I knew what he'd ordered. What he'd paid for. Who he'd killed to make this moment possible. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Applause erupted. Camera flashes exploded like artillery fire. The bride and groom walked down the aisle, and I watched Junhyuk's face remain impassive, even as Lee Yuna took his arm in a gesture that looked affectionate and possessive. The ceremony ended. The reception began. And the poison wine was already being poured. The reception hall opened like a different world. Traditional Korean music, Heegeum and Gaegeum, wove through modern jazz arrangements. Champagne towers caught the light from chandeliers, creating cascades of golden bubbles. Servers in crisp white uniforms moved like synchronized dancers, offering canapes and drinks to guests who probably had more blood on their hands than food. Junhyuk and Yuna sat at the head table on a raised dais, looking every inch the perfect couple. She leaned toward him, whispering something. He nodded politely, his face a mask. Around them, Seoul's elite mingled. Politicians laughing with gangsters, chaebol heirs taking selfies with crime lords. The kind of party where everyone was armed and everyone was lying. I tracked the waiters carrying wine glasses on silver trays. Most held champagne or red wine from the main service bar. But one server, older, stone-faced, carried a single tray with 6 crystal glasses and a bottle wrapped in white cloth. The bottle had a small red ribbon tied around its neck. My pulse hammered against my ribs. The USB drive felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I started moving through the crowd, keeping my pace casual, my face forgettable. Just another guest. Just another face. Security guards lined the walls, but none of them stopped me. I'd dressed right, moved right, belonged right. It was a talent I'd cultivated over a decade, the art of being nobody. My Omega instincts screamed warnings. Danger. Alpha territory. Predators everywhere. Run. I ignored them. I'd ignored survival instincts for so long they'd become background noise. Lee Sung-min rose from his seat at the family table, champagne glass in hand. The room quieted gradually, conversations dying like ripples on water. He smiled broadly, the picture of a proud father. "Honored guests," he began, his voice carrying. "Today we celebrate not just a wedding, but a new beginning for Seoul." The server with the red ribbon bottle approached the head table. Started pouring into the crystal glasses in front of Jun-hyuk and Yuna. 60 seconds. Maybe less. For too long, our families have been divided by old grievances, old wounds. I pushed past a group of businessmen. 40 seconds. But today we come together. We choose peace. The server finished pouring. Stepped back. Jun-hyuk's hand moved toward his glass. 30 seconds. So please join me in raising a toast. Forgive me. This is the only way. I broke into a run. Security noticed. I saw them move in my peripheral vision, but I was faster, desperate, committed. I vaulted onto the dais in one movement, years of running from danger translating into explosive speed. Jun-hyuk's head turned toward me, his alpha instincts flaring. His eyes widened fractionally, the only surprise I'd see on his face. I grabbed his face with both hands and kissed him. Not gentle, not tentative, deep and desperate and deliberate, my lips crushing against his, my fingers tangling in his perfectly styled hair. His alpha scent exploded around me, cedar and smoke and sudden shocked arousal. The ballroom erupted. Gasps, shouts, camera flashes like artillery fire. I heard Yuna scream, high and piercing. Security was rushing forward, hands reaching for weapons. But Jun-hyuk didn't push me away. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from. His body went rigid with shock, then his alpha instincts took over. Danger, Omega, protect mine. His hand came up, gripping the back of my neck, and for one wild second he kissed me back. I broke away just enough to whisper against his lips, my breath mixing with his. The wine. Poisoned. Don't drink it. His eyes flashed gold, pure alpha response, and I pressed the USB drive into his palm. Evidence. Lee family. They're going to kill you. Who are you? His voice was rough, dangerous. Someone who doesn't want to watch you die. His other hand shot out, gripping my wrist, not to hurt, but to anchor. To hold. His alpha senses were processing everything at inhuman speed. The omega scent of my fear. The desperation in my kiss. The truth in my words. The poison. I watched his nostrils flare as he caught it. A scent that didn't belong. Death in a wine glass. Security reached the dais. Hands grabbed my shoulders, trying to pull me away. But Jun-hyuk's grip on my wrist tightened. Nobody moves. 2 words. Quiet. Absolute. The entire ballroom froze. His voice carried an alpha command that made even other alphas stop in their tracks. The security guard's hands loosened on my shoulders, but didn't release me. 300 guests stood paralyzed, watching. Jun-hyuk rose slowly from his chair, pulling me up with him. His eyes had gone completely gold now, his alpha fully present. He looked at the wine glass, then at Lee Sung-min, whose face had gone carefully blank. Everyone stays exactly where they are, Jun-hyuk said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. No one leaves. No one makes a call. No one moves. His thumb pressed against the pulse point on my wrist, checking my heartbeat, reading my fear. Min-ho, he called, never taking his eyes off me. A man in a black suit appeared at his shoulder. Boss, lock it down. Now. Yes, sir. Jun-hyuk's gaze finally released mine, sweeping across the frozen crowd. When he looked back, his expression was unreadable except for his eyes. Still gold, still dangerous, still fixed on me like I was prey he couldn't decide whether to kill or keep. I'd just kissed the most dangerous alpha in Seoul. At his wedding. In front of everyone. And he was still holding on to me. The doors slammed shut with the finality of a coffin lid. Min-ho moved with military precision, gesturing to security guards positioned at every exit. I heard locks engaging, heavy mechanical clicks that echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. Phones, Min-ho announced, his voice cutting through the stunned quiet. Everyone. Now. Servers appeared with silver trays, moving between tables. 300 guests, politicians, businessmen, crime lords, reluctantly surrendered their devices. A few protested. Min-ho's hand moved to his holster. The protest stopped. Jun-hyuk still held my wrist, his grip firm but not painful. He positioned me slightly behind him, protective instinct overriding logic. His alpha scent had gone sharp with aggression, filling the air with the promise of violence. Jun-hyuk, what is the meaning of this? Lee Sung-min's voice carried forced calm. This is highly inappropriate. Sit down, Jun-hyuk said quietly. Lee Sung-min sat. The bride's family table erupted in whispered arguments. Lee Yuna stood frozen at the head table, her perfect makeup unable to hide the confusion on her face. Her uncle made a move toward the side exit. 2 guards blocked his path, weapons visible now. I said nobody moves. Jun-hyuk's alpha command rolled through the room like thunder. Minho approached, and Jun-hyuk finally released my wrist to hand him the USB drive. Their eyes met briefly, an entire conversation happening in silence. Minho nodded, disappearing toward a side room. Someone bring Dr. Choi, Jun-hyuk ordered. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Dr. Choi was known to everyone here. The discreet physician who asked no questions and treated no paperwork. If he was being summoned, someone was about to be declared dead or dying. An older man in wire-rimmed glasses emerged from the crowd, medical bag already in hand. Kong SSI. Test the wine. Jun-hyuk gestured to the crystal glass still sitting on the head table. All of it. Everything from that bottle. Dr. Choi's expression didn't change, but I saw his hand tighten on his bag. He approached the head table, extracted testing equipment with practiced efficiency. The crowd watched in absolute silence. Jun-hyuk, this is absurd, Lee Sung-min said, attempting a laugh that died in his throat. You're embarrassing yourself over some Omega's delusion. Be very careful what you say next. Jun-hyuk's voice was ice. Dr. Choi worked quickly, adding drops of various chemicals to samples of the wine. I watched colors shift, clear to pink to deep crimson. His face went pale. Cyanide compound, he announced, his voice tight. Modified to be undetectable by standard autopsy tests. Designed to mimic cardiac arrest in alphas specifically. Fatal within minutes of consumption. The ballroom exploded. Shouts. Accusations. Chair scraping. Lee Sung-min was on his feet, hands raised. This is a setup. I would never. I have no idea how. Minho, Jun-hyuk said calmly. The side door opened. Minho returned carrying a laptop, screen already glowing. He set it on the head table, turned it to face the crowd. Press play. Lee Sung-min's voice filled the ballroom through hidden speakers. During the first toast. Make it clean. Make it look natural. Once Kong is dead, the syndicate will fracture. We move in within 24 hours. Another voice distorted. The payment? Already transferred. 500 million won. Confirmed. Confirmed. The wine will be delivered day of. Marked with red ribbon for easy identification. The recording continued, meticulous planning, bank account numbers, assassination orders. With each word, Lee Sung-min's face went from red to white to gray. Lee Yuna made a sound like something breaking. She collapsed into her chair, hands covering her mouth. Appa! Appa, what did you do? I did this for us. Lee Sung-min roared, his composure finally shattering. For our family. The Kong syndicate has bled us dry for 3 years. So you decided to marry me off and murder my husband? Yuna's voice was hollow. He was always going to die, daughter. This way, you'd inherit everything. We'd control Seoul by spring. Jun-hyuk listened to all of this with no expression at all. When the recording ended, he nodded once to Minho. Take him. 4 guards moved forward. Lee Sung-min tried to run, made it 3 steps before they had him. His family members started to rise. Minho's voice cut through the chaos. Anyone who moves dies. Anyone who speaks dies. Sit. Down. They sat. Lee Sung-min was dragged toward a service corridor, still shouting. You can't do this. I have connections. The prosecutors, the police. The door closed behind them. The ballroom waited in suffocating silence. 10 minutes passed. A single gunshot echoed through the walls. Lee Yuna flinched. Several guests closed their eyes. Most didn't react at all. This was Seoul's underworld. We all knew how justice worked here. Minho returned alone, holstering his weapon. Nodded to Jun-hyuk. Jun-hyuk stood, surveying the frozen crowd with eyes that had returned to their normal dark brown, but had lost none of their danger. The wedding is over, he announced. The alliance is void. The Lee Syndicate is dissolved as of this moment. Anyone who challenges this decision won't leave Seoul alive. Anyone who speaks of what happened here tonight will wish they hadn't. He paused. You're all free to go. Your phones will be returned at the exits. Enjoy the rest of your evening. The doors unlocked with hollow clicks. Nobody moved immediately. Then, slowly, 300 guests began filing out in stunned silence. The bride's family remained seated, trapped, leaderless, uncertain. Yuna stared at nothing, her wedding dress a white flag of surrender. In the chaos of movement and whispered conversations, I saw my chance. Slipped away from Junhyuk's side. Moved against the flow of bodies toward the service exit. My heart hammered. Almost there. Almost free. I pushed through the service door into a stark corridor of concrete and fluorescent lights. Broke into a run. A hand grabbed my shoulder, spinning me around. Minho looked at me with flat, professional eyes. Boss wants to see you. Now. I'd saved his life. Now I had to face him. And I knew how this ended for people who knew too much. Minho escorted me through corridors that grew progressively more expensive, marble to hardwood to carpet so thick my footsteps made no sound. We took a private elevator to the top floor. The doors opened directly into an office that looked like it belonged in a different world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul, the Han River cutting through the city like a dark ribbon. The skyline glittered with a million lights, beautiful and cold. The office itself was minimalist, dark wood leather furniture, everything precisely placed. No clutter. No warmth. Just controlled, calculated power. Junhyuk stood with his back to me, looking out at the city he controlled. He'd removed his jacket, rolled up his shirt sleeves. Even in partial disarray, he radiated authority. Minho cleared his throat. Boss. Leave us. The elevator doors closed, leaving me alone with the alpha I'd kissed. I stood in the center of the room, hands loose at my sides, prepared for whatever came next. Death, probably. A quick bullet. Maybe he'd make it hurt first. Junhyuk turned, studying me with those dark, intelligent eyes. Without a word, he moved to a bar cabinet, poured amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. His alpha scent filled the space, cedar and smoke and dominance, so thick I could taste it. My omega instincts responded immediately. Fear and attraction tangling together, making my pulse race for entirely different reasons. He walked toward me, holding out one glass. I took it, our fingers brushing. The contact sent electricity up my arm. Drink, he said. I did. Expensive whiskey burned down my throat. He watched me over the rim of his own glass. Who sent you? No one. I work alone. Alone Omega decides to infiltrate the most dangerous wedding in Seoul's history to save an alpha he's never met. His voice was perfectly calm. Try again. It's the truth. Why save me? The question hung between us. I didn't have an answer that made sense. I'd asked myself the same thing 100 times while planning this suicide mission. I don't know, I admitted finally. His eyes narrowed. He began circling me slowly, predator assessing prey. I forced myself to stand still, to meet his gaze when it found mine. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from. You didn't just warn me, Junhyuk said, his voice low and dangerous. You kissed me. At my wedding. In front of Korea's most powerful families. The press. Politicians. Everyone who matters in this city. It was the fastest way to stop the toast. Liar. The word cut through my defenses. He moved closer, invading my space, his alpha scent wrapping around me like a physical thing. I can smell your fear, he murmured. But I can also smell the rest of it. The way your heart races when I'm close. The way your omega instincts respond to mine. You didn't kiss me because it was convenient. You kissed me because you wanted to. That's not. Don't. His hand came up, not touching but hovering near my face. I've spent 15 years reading people. Learning when they lie. When they're hiding something. You saved my life, and I'm grateful. But don't insult me with half-truths. I said nothing. What could I say? That he was right. That in some twisted, inexplicable way, I'd wanted to kiss him even knowing it would probably end with my death? He stepped back, giving me space to breathe. Finished his whiskey in one swallow. What's your name? Han Seojin. Well, Han Seojin. He set his glass down with precise care. You kissed me at my wedding. That makes you my responsibility. I don't need. You exposed yourself to save me. The Lee family's remaining allies will hunt you. The press will find your face within hours. Every news outlet in Korea will be running that photo by morning. You've made yourself a target. The truth of it settled over me like ice water. I'd been so focused on stopping the assassination, I hadn't thought about after. Hadn't considered that kissing the alpha of Seoul's underworld in front of cameras would mark me forever. You'll stay here, Junhyuk continued, his tone leaving no room for argument. Under my protection. Until I decide what to do with you. You're making me a prisoner. I'm keeping you alive. His eyes locked with mine. Would you prefer I let you walk out of here? See how long you last. I had no answer. He was right. I'd painted a target on my own back the moment my lips touched his. Minho will show you to a guest room. Don't try to leave. The building is secure, and my people have orders to stop you. Gently, if possible. But they will stop you. The elevator arrived. Minho led me down another corridor to a door that opened onto luxury, king-sized bed, marble bathroom. Windows that probably cost more than everything I'd ever owned. Get some rest, Minho said. You're safe here. The door closed. I heard the lock engage from outside. I sat on the bed, expensive sheets soft beneath my hands, and stared at nothing. I'd entered his world to save him. Now I couldn't leave. 3 days passed in a strange kind of limbo. The penthouse became my gilded cage, vast, luxurious, and completely inescapable. Junhyuk gave me freedom within its boundaries. No locked doors except the elevator that required his fingerprint to activate. No guards watching my every move. But the invisible leash remained. He worked from home, which meant I was never truly alone. His home office door stayed open, and I felt his presence like a constant pressure against my skin. Alpha awareness, tracking my movements even when he appeared focused on documents and phone calls conducted in low, authoritative tones. We ate meals together. Silent affairs at the dining table overlooking Seoul. He'd emerge from his office at precise times, gesture for me to join him, and we'd share expertly prepared food delivered by staff who never looked me in the eye. The silence felt charged, electric. Every clink of chopsticks, every shift in position, hyper-aware of each other's presence. I noticed he never touched me. Not even accidentally. He'd hand me things with careful spacing, move around me with precise distance. But his eyes tracked every movement I made, watching me cross rooms, observing when I stood at the windows, noting when I ate and when I barely touched my food. The alpha was restraining himself. I could see it in the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands would flex and then still. Something in him wanted to reach out, to claim, to possess. But he held back with iron control. On the third evening, I found him on the balcony, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. Seoul spread below us like a circuit board of lights. The air was cold enough to sting. He didn't turn when I approached, but his posture shifted, acknowledging my presence. "Why haven't you killed me?" I asked. The explosion hit at dawn. I woke to the sound of shattering glass and Junhyuk's alpha roar, primal, commanding, dangerous. The penthouse shook. Alarms shrieked. I rolled out of bed as another blast rocked the building, this one closer. Seojin. Junhyuk's voice carried from somewhere in the penthouse. Stay down. I stayed exactly where I was for approximately 3 seconds before stumbling into the hallway. Smoke poured through the ventilation. The acrid smell of explosives and burning plastic filled my lungs. Junhyuk emerged from his bedroom, already dressed, gun in hand. His eyes had gone full alpha gold, his scent sharp with aggression and protective fury. "The Lee family," he said, voice clipped. "Coordinated assault. Multiple entry points. Gunfire erupted below us. Automatic weapons, close together, organized. This wasn't a random attack. This was war. Get to the safe room," Junhyuk ordered. "Now. Where is it?" "Minho." Junhyuk barked into a phone that had appeared in his other hand. "Seojin needs extraction. Northwest corridor." The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Not Minho. 3 men in tactical gear poured out, weapons raised. Junhyuk moved faster than I'd ever seen anyone move, alpha speed and precision. 2 shots. 2 bodies dropped. The third got a round off. Junhyuk twisted, the bullet missing by centimeters, and put him down with ruthless efficiency. I'd never seen him like this. The controlled alpha who poured tea and worked late into the night had vanished, replaced by something primal and terrifying. His movements were fluid violence, his eyes tracking threats I couldn't even see yet. "Go!" he shouted at me. Another explosion. The floor buckled. I lost my footing, hit the wall hard. Through the smoke, I saw more figures emerging from the stairwell. Too many. Junhyuk was already engaging, his gun barking in rapid succession, each shot finding its target. Hands grabbed my shoulders. I spun, ready to fight, but it was Minho. With me. Now. He hauled me down the corridor as gunfire erupted behind us. I looked back once, saw Junhyuk surrounded but still standing, still fighting, his alpha presence filling the space like a physical force. "He'll be fine," Minho said, reading my fear. "Boss has survived worse. You're my priority." The safe room was hidden behind a false wall in what I'd thought was a linen closet. Steel reinforced, stocked with supplies, complete with monitors showing security feeds throughout the building. Minho pushed me inside. "Stay here. Don't open this for anyone but me or the boss." "Understood." "Minho." The door sealed with a hydraulic hiss. I watched the monitors, heart in my throat. The penthouse was chaos. Bodies. Blood. Junhyuk's security forces had responded, turning the building into a war zone. And somewhere in that chaos, Junhyuk fought with the lethal grace of an apex predator defending his territory. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Then silence. Gradual. Cautious. The gunfire died. The alarms cut out. On the monitors, I watched Junhyuk's forces securing the building, dragging bodies, checking rooms. The safe room door hissed open. I spun, ready to fight with nothing but my bare hands. Junhyuk stood in the doorway, covered in blood. His shirt was torn, his face spattered with red. His eyes had returned to their normal dark brown, but still held that dangerous edge. He looked at me. Really looked, scanning for injuries with desperate intensity. Then he crossed the space in 3 strides and grabbed me. Not gentle. His hands moved over my arms, my shoulders checking, searching. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? Seojin, answer me. I'm fine. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I'm not hurt. You could have been killed. His voice shook. The first time I'd heard Kang Junhyuk sound anything less than completely controlled. If Minho had been 30 seconds slower. But he wasn't. I'm fine. I'm here. His hands stilled on my shoulders, gripped tight enough to bruise. So could you. That's why I'm still here. The words hung between us. His eyes widened fractionally as understanding hit. You stayed to protect me, he said quietly. Did you think it was just about survival? Something raw and unguarded flashed across his face before his usual control reasserted itself. He released me, stepped back, but his eyes never left mine. Boss. Minho appeared in the doorway. War Council in 10. We need to plan our response. The war room filled quickly. Minho, 3 other lieutenants whose names I didn't know, all of them radiating controlled violence. Maps of Seoul spread across the table. Photographs of Lee family associates. Lists of assets and territories. The Omega should be moved to a secure location, one of the lieutenants said, not looking at me. Outside Seoul. Maybe even out of the country. They'll come for him to get to you. No, Junhyuk said flatly. Boss, with respect. He stays with me. Then he's a liability. The lieutenant's voice was careful but firm. A target they can use against you. I'd spent 10 years being invisible, letting others make decisions about my life and safety. Something in me snapped. I know their networks, I said. Every head turned toward me. I worked as a fixer. I know who they use for weapons, for safe houses, for communications. I know their patterns, their contacts, their backup plans. I met Junhyuk's eyes. I can help. The room went silent. Junhyuk studied me with that unnerving intensity. You don't have to. I know. I'm choosing to. For the first time, I was choosing to fight instead of just survive. The difference felt enormous. His lips quirked, almost a smile. Then let's work. The planning session ran for hours. I provided information I'd collected over years of operating in Seoul's underworld. Names. Locations. Connections I'd cataloged without even meaning to. Junhyuk's lieutenants stopped looking at me like a liability and started looking at me like an asset. By the time we finished, the sun was setting. The others left to execute their assignments. Junhyuk and I remained, surrounded by maps and empty coffee cups. If you want to leave, I'll arrange it, he said quietly. Safe passage out of Korea. New identity. Money. You could start over, far from all of this. I should have said yes. Should have taken the escape he was offering. And miss the fun? I said instead. Not a chance. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile, the first I'd seen from him. It transformed his face, made him look younger, almost vulnerable. I'm glad. I'd stopped being his prisoner. Now I was choosing to be his ally. But as I watched him smile, felt the warmth in my chest, I realized the truth. I wanted to be something more. You're more useful alive. I know too much. Yes. He turned to face me, leaning against the railing with deceptive casualness. Which is why you're here, not at the bottom of the Han River. I should have felt afraid. Should have heard the threat. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Junhyuk's eyes narrowed, studying me with that unnerving intensity. Why do you smell like you're afraid of me? And not afraid at the same time. Heat flooded through me. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. He pushed off the railing, moving closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. His alpha scent wrapped around me, cedar and smoke and something darker. Your heart races when I'm near. But it's not just fear. I can smell the difference. Maybe I'm just smart enough to know what you're capable of. Maybe. He stopped just outside my personal space, close enough that I could feel his body heat. Or maybe the Omega in you recognizes something your mind won't admit. My breath caught. The biological pull was undeniable, every instinct screaming at me to either submit or flee. I forced myself to step back, breaking the spell. "I'm going to bed," I managed. He didn't stop me, just watched me retreat with those dark, knowing eyes. But sleep wouldn't come. I lay in the expensive sheets, pulse racing, mind churning. Around midnight, I gave up. Pulled on the clothes Junhyuk's staff had provided. Designer brands that fit perfectly, which bothered me more than I wanted to admit, and wandered toward the kitchen. Soft light spilled from the open doorway. I found Junhyuk at the counter, dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar, documents spread before him. A cup of tea steamed at his elbow. "Can't sleep either?" he asked without looking up. "Seems to be going around." He gestured to the tea kettle. "Help yourself." I poured chamomile, leaned against the opposite counter. We stood in companionable silence for a moment, just the rustle of papers and the hum of the city below. "You work too much," I observed. "So I'm told." He signed something with a flourish. "Minho says I'm going to have a heart attack by 40. Would be ironic. Survive an assassination attempt only to die from stress." His lips quirked, not quite a smile, but close. "How did someone like you survive this long?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "The underworld doesn't forgive weakness. Doesn't protect the vulnerable. Yet you're an unbonded Omega who worked as a fixer for 10 years. He finally looked up, genuine curiosity in his eyes. "How?" I sipped my tea, considering whether to answer honestly. "By being invisible. By making myself so useful that people forgot to see me as prey. By never staying in one place long enough to be claimed or killed. That's not surviving. That's just postponing death." The observation hit harder than it should have. Maybe. But it worked. Until me. Until you. I met his gaze. "You're the first person who's ever really looked at me. Not through me. Not past me. At me." Something shifted in his expression. The alpha restraint cracked, just for a second, revealing raw want underneath. He moved around the counter, not fast, but inevitable. Stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Seojin. My name on his lips sent shivers down my spine. His hand lifted, reaching for my face. I held my breath. "Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from." His fingers stopped millimeters from my skin. Hovered there, trembling slightly with the effort of holding back. Then dropped. "I won't mark you without permission," he said, voice rough. "But staying this close is dangerous." "Dangerous for who?" "Both of us." He stepped back, putting necessary distance between us. "You should sleep." Junhyuk. "Good night, Seojin." Dismissed. I returned to my room, closed the door, pressed my back against it. My heart hammered against my ribs. My skin felt too tight. The Omega in me was screaming, wanting, needing, demanding. I climbed back into bed, knowing sleep wouldn't come any easier now. Stared at the ceiling and tried to process what just happened. What almost happened? The Alpha wouldn't claim me. And I didn't know if I wanted him to, or feared it. The operation went down in Gangnam, in a building the Lee family used as a front for their remaining operations. 3 teams. Coordinated strikes. I fed them intelligence from the van, watching security feeds, tracking movements, guiding Junhyuk's people through blind spots I'd memorized from years of similar jobs. "East corridor clear." I said into the comm, 2 guards stationed at the north stairwell. "Armed." Minho's voice crackled back. "Copy. Moving." Junhyuk led the primary team. I watched him on the monitors, efficient, lethal, completely in control. His team moved like extensions of his will, taking down resistance with minimal casualties. It should have been clean. Should have been over in 15 minutes. Then someone triggered an alarm I hadn't known existed. "Seojin, we need another exit route." Junhyuk's voice came through urgent. "They've sealed the primary extraction point." I pulled up building schematics, traced alternative routes. "Service elevator, west side. Takes you straight to the parking garage." On it. I should have stayed in the van. Should have let them handle it. But through the cameras, I saw Lee family reinforcements flooding the building. Saw Junhyuk's team getting boxed in. I grabbed the spare weapon Minho had left, just in case, and ran. The parking garage was chaos. Gunfire echoed off concrete. I came in from the side, saw 3 of Lee's men flanking Junhyuk's position. They hadn't seen me yet. I fired. Not to kill, but to distract. It worked. One turned, got off a shot. Something hot and sharp tore through my side. Then Junhyuk was there, moving with that terrifying alpha speed. The 3 men dropped. The rest of Lee's forces scattered or surrendered. It was over. I pressed my hand to my side. It came away red. Seojin. Junhyuk's voice had gone low and dangerous. He crossed to me in 3 strides, his eyes flashing gold. You're bleeding. It's not that bad. His hands were already on me, examining the wound with shaking fingers. The alpha scent rolling off him was pure feral protectiveness, cedar and smoke and rage. We need to get you out of here, he said, his voice barely controlled. Now, back at the penthouse, he ignored the celebrating team members, the debriefing, everything. Just carried me straight to his bathroom and set me on the counter with surprising gentleness. Medical kit, he ordered Minho, who appeared and disappeared quickly. Junhyuk's hands shook as he cut away my bloody shirt. The wound was a graze, painful, bleeding heavily, but not life-threatening. He cleaned it with antiseptic, his jaw tight, movements precise despite the tremor. I'm okay, I said quietly. You're not. His voice was rough. You could have died. But I didn't. You ran into active gunfire. What were you thinking? He pressed gauze to the wound, harder than necessary. You could have, I can't. He stopped, closed his eyes, took a shuddering breath. I can't do this. Watch you in danger. No, you could. I cut him off, gripping his wrist. Then don't. Mark me. His eyes snapped open, meeting mine. What? You've been holding back. I know why. You wanted consent. You have it. Seojin, this isn't just about wanting you safe. A bond is. I know what it means. I pulled him closer, ignoring the sting in my side. I'm choosing you. Choose me back. He stared at me, searching my face for doubt or fear. His alpha scent was overwhelming this close, protective and possessive and wanting. This is permanent, he said carefully. Once I mark you, there's no undoing it. You'll be bonded to me for life. You'll feel what I feel. You'll be tied to me in ways that... I know. I cupped his face, felt the tension in his jaw. I've spent my whole life being temporary. Disposable. For once, I want something permanent. I want you. His control wavered. I could see it in his eyes, feel it in the way his hands tightened on my waist. Are you sure? His voice was barely a whisper. I pulled him close, pressed my forehead to his. I've never been more sure of anything. Something in him broke. Or maybe finally aligned. He kissed me, not desperate like that first kiss at the wedding, but deep and claiming and full of promises. His hands were everywhere, careful of my injury but possessive, mapping me like territory he'd finally earned. The mark, I breathed against his lips. I want it. I want everyone to know. He groaned, a sound between surrender and triumph. His mouth moved to my throat, finding the spot where neck met shoulder, where the bond would settle. His breath was hot against my skin. Last chance, he murmured. Say no now, or... Yes. His teeth sank in. The bond snapped into place like a rubber band pulled taut and suddenly released. I felt it, a rush of sensation that was his and mine and ours. His relief. His possessiveness. His overwhelming need to protect and claim and keep. And underneath it all, something I hadn't expected. Love. The alpha loved me. I gasped, my hands fisting in his shirt. The pain was there, but secondary to the feeling of completion, of something clicking into place that I hadn't known was missing. When he pulled back, his eyes were gold and satisfied. Blood marked his lips, my blood. The claiming complete. I feel different, I managed. You're mine now. His voice was rough with emotion. And I'm yours. He cleaned the bite mark carefully, applied salve that would help it heal into a permanent scar. The mark of an alpha's claim. Then he lifted me, carrying me to his bed. Not the guest room I'd been using, but his. We lay together, his arms around me, careful of my injury. The bond hummed between us, contentment and possession and belonging. I never thought I'd belong to anyone, I said quietly. His arms tightened. You don't belong to me. You're with me. There's a difference. Is there? You're not my possession. You're my partner. My mate. My choice. He pressed a kiss to my temple. And I'm yours. Equal claim. I felt it through the bond, the truth of his words. Not ownership. Partnership. I'd kissed him to save his life. Now he'd claimed me to save mine. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the weight of Junhyuk's gaze. He was already awake, propped on one elbow, watching me with an expression I'd never seen before. Soft. Unguarded. His. The bond hummed between us, contentment and possession and something deeper. I could feel his emotions as clearly as my own. The wonder. The protectiveness. The absolute certainty. Regrets? He asked quietly. I reached up, touched the mark on my neck. It was tender, visible, intentional. A claim for the world to see. Only that we didn't do this sooner. His smile transformed his face. He leaned down, kissed me gently, careful of the healing wound in my side. Through the bond, I felt his relief, his joy, his overwhelming need to keep me safe and close. "I need to make a statement," he said eventually. "About us. About what happened with the Lee family. The underworld needs to know where things stand." "When?" "Today. This afternoon." His thumb traced my jawline. "I want you there. Beside me. Visible. As your bonded Omega. As my partner." The press conference was held in the same hotel where everything had started, the Grand Hyatt. Jun Hyuk's people had arranged it quickly, calling in favors, ensuring the right people would attend. Representatives from every major syndicate in Seoul. Politicians. Business leaders. Everyone who mattered in the city's hidden power structure. I stood beside him at the podium, the mark on my neck deliberately uncovered. Let them see. Let them know. Jun Hyuk's presence commanded the room even before he spoke. His alpha scent, cedar and smoke and absolute authority, made even other alphas shift uncomfortably. 3 weeks ago, there was an attempt on my life, he began, his voice carrying to every corner. The Lee family, under the guise of a peace treaty, planned my assassination. They failed. Lee Sung-min paid for his betrayal with his life. The Lee syndicate is dissolved. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. "This is Han Seo-jin." Jun Hyuk's hand found mine, fingers interlacing. "My bonded mate." He exposed the plot. Saved my life. And he stands with me now as my partner in all things. The shock was palpable. A bonded pair was rare enough in the underworld. An alpha of Jun Hyuk's status bonding with an unknown Omega? Unprecedented. "Let me be clear," Jun Hyuk continued, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "Any threat against him is a threat against me. Any attempt to use him as leverage will be met with complete annihilation. He is under my protection, yes. But more than that, he is my equal. My choice. My mate." The message was unmistakable. Touch him, and you die. Through the bond, I felt Jun Hyuk's absolute conviction. This wasn't posturing. He would burn Seoul to the ground for me if necessary. After the statement, representatives from the remaining Lee family allies approached. One by one, they bent the knee, pledged loyalty, acknowledged Jun Hyuk's supremacy. The territorial wars were over. Peace had arrived, but on Jun Hyuk's terms. I stood beside him through all of it, no longer invisible, no longer disposable. Equal. Weeks passed. The underworld settled into its new configuration. I became Jun Hyuk's advisor officially, though my role was so much more than that. My intelligence network, contacts built over 10 years as a fixer, proved invaluable. I knew the city's hidden channels, its secret economies, its shadow players. We worked together with deadly efficiency. He handled the public face, the negotiations, the displays of power. I worked the background, gathering intelligence, predicting moves, identifying threats before they materialized. But there were quiet moments too. Like tonight, standing in the penthouse kitchen. Jun Hyuk was attempting to cook, something he claimed to know how to do, but clearly didn't. I watched him burn rice with barely concealed amusement. "Stop laughing," he said without turning around. I didn't say anything. I can feel it through the bond. "You're laughing at me." "Maybe a little." I moved beside him, took over the cooking before he could cause actual damage. "You run Seoul's underworld but can't make basic bibimbap? I have people for cooking. You have me now. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from." His arms came around my waist from behind, careful of my now-healed injury. He rested his chin on my shoulder, and I felt his contentment through the bond. These small, domestic moments affected him as deeply as any victory.